What's up, fantasy fans? This is Mitchell at FF Real Talk, and yeah, we're already through 5 weeks of the regular season and of the fantasy season. But in terms of fantasy, we're getting close to that halfway mark where we're halfway through the fantasy season before the getting close to halfway through the fantasy season where the playoffs start. So we're at that weird part of the year where you're starting to know who the better teams are in any given league you're in. If you're 0-5, you're not all the way out of contention necessarily. Depends on the division you're in or whatever have you. But if you're 0-5, you're in a situation, or even 1-4 at this point, you're in a situation where you're really in an uphill battle. And it's not necessarily a reflection of how you drafted. You could have very well been in a situation like one team I have, 1-3-1, I think that's what it is. And that's 1 win, 3 losses, and a tie. So, but in that particular league, which is not doing well, obviously, I had Adrian Peterson as my first pick and RG3 as my quarterback. So when you have a situation like that, it's hard to stay competitive. But hopefully you're able to work the waiver, and that's what these videos are here for, to help you spell these instances that are like that. But week 5 was a pretty standard week of fantasy. It wasn't anything, it was sort of like last week. It had a little more mysterious things, like anyone who benched Tom Brady kind of paid for it, or once again, the LaShawn McCoy, Calvin Johnson, thing that's massacring your scoring right now. But it's one of those things where at this point you're going to have to roll with it. Hopefully, I'm with all the commentators and announcers at this point. It's like, I think they should bench Calvin Johnson and let him get healthy, because it's a drag on fantasy in particular, though they're not caring about fantasy in the NFL. With us, it's the whole notion is, if Calvin's playing, you play him. But if they would sit him down, we would have no inkling to play him. We'll play somebody else. But at this point, even though I have Calvin, I'm benching him until he seems right, So, and with LaShawn McCoy, it's just one of those things. You're going to have to play him. I believe he's hurt, and I believe a lot of people, they're not released. Chip Kelly's not playing his hand. I believe this turf toe thing is far worse than it seems, and it's going to be a problem the rest of the season. But you got to play him, because you can't trade him right now. You won't get any value for him. So, but I digress. We're going to get straight into, week 6 waiver ads. The number one pick this week should be pretty much number ones with anybody. Andre Williams. It was a not so big of a deal with 20 carries, 65 yards, and a touchdown. But Rashard Jennings, has got an MCL sprain, and he's already listed as doubtful. He was listed as doubtful Sunday for this upcoming week. So that's already telling you he's hurt, and he's probably going to be out multiple weeks. So when you have that situation, and then you have a guy who's been producing even with Jennings on the field, you got to know what you're going to get out of him. This is not like a Jared McKinnon situation or someone like that, for the fact that you haven't seen much but hoping for. You've seen Andre Williams and what he can do in several games this season so far. So if with Rashard Jennings probably missing a lot of time, it's going to be, and they're wanting to run in the Giants offense, it's a no-brainer. He is a must-add this week and should be heading towards that 80% or better owned situation. And right now, he's currently at 30%. So make sure you put your waiver claim in for him ASAP. Number 2 has been on the list of several weeks running now, but it's clear there should be no mystery now. Brian Quick, 5 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns on 9 targets. I was initially hesitant about him because I've seen him in years past, and I kind of liken him to an Eddie Royal who teases you, but he'll do something and then it's not necessarily real. Brian Quick is the real deal now. We always knew he had the talent if you've ever paid attention to his career, but the opportunities were kind of slim because I've never been a Sam Bradford guy in the first place. But Austin Davis is real. Austin Davis looks like the real deal as a quarterback. He's putting up fantasy quarterback one stats, and it's getting to be an every week thing. And right now, Brian Quick is at this 100% no question on level of Kelvin Benjamin status right now. If you need a receiver and you got anybody that you try to get rid of or whatever have you, Brian Quick is definitely a must-add. You've got somebody in your lineup that's not performing as good as. I tell you what, I'll give you a perfect example. If you're holding on to Larry Fitzgerald right now because of the name, if you need a receiver and Larry Fitzgerald is your worst performing player, I would, in a heartbeat, drop Larry Fitzgerald right now for Brian Quick. So sometimes you got to get to that fantasy point where you can drop names that you've had. If they're a great player historically or reputation-wise, but they're not producing, they're not producing. You got to be able to take notice of what's happening. And if they got players like Quick out there and you're holding on to Fitzgerald, hoping for it, and with this whole thing with Carson Palmer not knowing when he's coming back, Larry Fitzgerald is now a liability. Pick up a guy like Branden Quick. It's going to pay off because Austin Davis is the real deal. Branden Oliver, 19 carries, 114 yards, and a touchdown. But what the kicker to this was 4 catches for 68 and a touchdown. Well, first thing about Branden Oliver is a lot of us didn't know much about him. I'm going to admittedly say I didn't even know much about him. But this is one thing I do know. Donald Brown isn't good. I was saying pick up Donald Brown a couple weeks ago because I thought he was going to be the clear back, and with an opportunity to be the number one clear back with Ryan Matthews out and Woodhead out, how can you fail when you got a good team like the Chargers? Well, you fail when you're Donald Brown. We knew this with the Indianapolis Colts that he was never really that good a player, and he's shown it, and now he's even hurt. This was the best time for Branden Oliver to put on his show to be able to be considered a pickup, and now he's not now a consideration. To me, he's a must-own in all leagues, especially if you need a running back. He did everything out there Sunday, so there's nothing to even question. You can look at it as a McKinnon thing where you're like, well, was this a one-time thing? Well, the truth is he's not got the Asiata, in his way to determine what's going to be. And with the McKinnon bad game because of the rain, you're not going to have that situation necessarily. So Branden Oliver is a clear pickup to me, and I know I'm going to be putting in waiver claims for him. I'd rather have him at this point than any of the Browns running backs. I'd rather have him than McKinnon now, and I'd rather have him than any of that Baltimore crap too, any of them. So Branden Oliver is a solid pickup, I think, this week. Number 4, Ronnie Hillman. Not confident about this one, but the opportunity is clear. He had 15 carries for 64, which wasn't much of anything, but he's presumably the guy at this point for the fact that Monty Ball has a bad growing strain and he's been stinking up the place the whole season. It's not Monty Ball. We're getting to that whole he's getting to be a Doug Martin type thing, but even at least Doug Martin had one good season. Monty Ball hasn't done anything since being in the pros, honestly. So we go back to who we thought could have possibly had the starting gig last year over Ball when he was in his rookie year, which is Ronnie Hillman. But we got C.J. Anderson, we got Juwan Thompson, so we don't really know what's it going to be clearly in terms of the running game in Denver. But we know Denver is an opportunity. I'm going to tell you what they should have done. This isn't fantasy related. They should have did whatever they could to keep Noshawn Moreno. I bet they're hating that right now. Noshawn did too much to be jerked around like that and not paid. And they let him go, and now they're paying for it in terms of running backs. But Ronnie Hillman gets another chance. So you can take a flyer on him. He ain't necessarily no greatest thing, but running backs is the hardest position to fill. That's why he's number 4 on the list. Austin Davis, I just mentioned him in terms of Brian Quick, 29 for 49, 375 yards, 3 touchdowns. Wow, I don't even know what to tell you. He's playing like a QB1. At this point, he's not only that, he's making receivers rather. I went through every position to say that. Receivers look good that were questionable prior. Like I said before, quick, and even dare I say, Kenny Britt is looking good. This guy seems to be the real deal. And if you've got quarterback issues, which it's never going to be a point where several teams in any given league don't have quarterback deficiencies. At some points in the season, I could see myself definitely starting Austin Davis over Colin Kaepernick, over Tony Romo, over other starting quarterbacks that were drafted much earlier, or Austin Davis wasn't drafted, but guys that, it's some players that I would play him over. So it's players that are owned out there that I'd rather play him for. So that's why he's a consideration to pick up. And he's seeming like he's got a handle on the offense. And he's already been given the job over Shaun Hill. It's not going to be a situation where when Shaun Hill gets back, he's going to get the job. He has the gig. So if you needed a quarterback, you can do worse. Number 6 is Justin Forsett. We talk about him, it seems like, every week. And I've always said that I don't particularly like the guy because of his track record in teams before. But something about Baltimore, I guess, likes him. He was 6 for 42, not that much rushing because he's still in this committee game, but he got a touchdown. And he was 7 for 55 catches. He's always been a good pass catcher. So that's what gives him somewhat the leg up and his experience. Still only 21% owned, and it looks like they're going to need him some, but this committee situation makes it muddy. But they're definitely using him. He's becoming a guy that's getting points week after week. So, it's sparing points, but, usable points in flex positions or in these flex issues. So, Justin Forsett, he's out there in a lot of leagues. So, pick him up if you can't get any of the guys prior. My number 7 is Bobby Rainey. Now, this is more for the Doug Martin owners than anything else in the sense that, and not just the Doug Martin owners, but I don't know about you guys, but Doug Martin sucks. He is not who we thought he was. Not at all. And I don't know what love he's seeing out there. I don't know what he's trying to do by trying to get the most out of this guy. But anytime Bobby Rainey's on the field, even if it's limited, he looks like the superior back to Doug Martin every single time. I don't know if this is going to flip the script, but I do know one thing. NFL is a 1 week at a time league, and in any given time, you can be replaced. And I'm telling you, Bobby Rainey has a couple of weeks before he's taking over that job. If Doug Martin continues to do what he's doing, Bobby Rainey's going to be going into the fantasy playoffs as the lead back. I'm telling you. So all Doug Martin owners need to have him. All of them. And everybody else, you definitely need to keep an eye on this guy because he is someone who is explosive, and they're going to figure this out and stop trying to save face eventually. So keep your eye on him. Antone Smith with the Falcons. I don't know what it is about this guy, but he is just the master of making a touchdown somehow, some way. He doesn't have any stats for me to rattle off to you at all. He hadn't all season, but he's got a nose for the end zone. And it's sounding more and more like if any given week you have a true flex deficiency or something like that, he's a plug-and-play guy that's going to get you the 6 points and whatever yardage attached to it that a one score will get you. And that could be the wins and losses of a season. We're getting to that point where, all of us have seen that, and including me, losing by 1 point, winning by 1 point, losing by 3 points. These 1 touchdowns or whatever, or 1 point really, can be the difference between a win and a loss. So you don't want to leave holes. And this guy right here is somebody who's been scoring some way, somehow, every week. So right now, he seems to be a decent flex play. And at this point, the waiver wire is getting to that thin point where you're just looking for a home run hitter to spell any issues in your lineup for a week or two, plug and play. He's one of those guys. So if you need that, pick him up. Number 9, Mohamed Sanu. He's making a case week to week of being not only having a good rapport with Andy Dalton, he's becoming less fluky and more AJ Green independent. It's not like people thought, okay, AJ Green was out, he'll pick up the slack for that. He's becoming independent of AJ Green. He had 5 for 70 with a touchdown on 9 targets, and that 9 targets is the thing. So that's showing that Andy Dalton is looking for him. Keep Mohamed Sanu in mind. We don't know how they're going to look at him in terms of getting him back into the flow, but I'm telling you, with Sanu, it looks like they're targeting him. 9 targets says it all to me, and you're looking for plug and play guys. Mohamed Sanu is even better than that. And number 10 is the person who was number 1 in the first one I did of this. And it was for a different reason though. But number 10, Josh Gordon. Okay. We're getting to this is the waiver for the halfway point of when Josh Gordon comes back. Josh Gordon comes back week 12. We were saying that if he had 6 games or less suspension, whatever, it would be worth picking him up. We're there now. 6 more games off. Now's the time to get him. If you got somebody on your lineup that you could drop for a number 1 guy that will propel you in the playoffs. He's reportedly working out every day. He ain't just being a car salesman. This is a number 1 receiver, and we all got receiver deficiencies. So if you knew that you're heading towards the playoffs, you're in a good position, not fighting uphill now, not if you're in a bad spot in terms of your ranking, you're like 2 and 3 or something like that. If you got 3 and 2, 4 and 1 or whatever, definitely grab Josh Gordon and stash him on your bench, because it'll benefit you when the playoffs start. You got a plug and play number 1 waiting who's fresh, ready, and got it all to prove. And Brian Hoyer is proven to be effective. He immediately vaults to the number 1 option on that team. You can't do better than that. I'm telling you guys, he's now, what is it? Let me see how much percent he's on. That's what I looked at it earlier. 10% owned right now. So he's out there in virtually every league. Go get Josh Gordon and drop your worst guy and just wait. And then feast off the meal that he's going to serve you guys at the end of the season in your fantasy playoffs. And that's the 10 list right there. And on the my honorable mention for the week, and this is an if he's available guy, Justin Hunter. He got dropped in, about 30% of leagues. He's still about 70% owned. But for those people that dropped him, and you need for the people that have a league where he's out there from somebody dropping him, go pick him up. He finally had that game that everybody was waiting on him to have, and it seemed like Whitehurst has got it locked down in terms of this Jake Locker thing. I think it's pretty much we're gonna move this to the side and try to get some consistency. If he can develop rapport with him, it's going to be cool, and I think it's going to be better going forward because the quarterback situation is seeming to flesh itself out. So if you need a receiver and, you got some issues with it, Justin Hunter's out there in like 30% of leagues. And just a few repeats in case you need some backup in a certain position. Brian Hoyer, like I said, is doing pretty good. Jared McKinnon is still out there in 92% of leagues, and I think rain aside, he'll be having some better weeks to validate anybody who was saying picking him up. Eli's still out there, and Dwayne Allen is very much still out there, and he's consistently making 4 catches, 40-plus yards, and a TD a game. So that's somebody else to think about. And some players to keep an eye on. Kenny Britt, like I said, he's benefiting from this Austin Davis thing. Benny Cunningham. Zach Stacy looks like he's a bit hurt, and they've been ceding some of the touches to him anyway. So definitely keep an eye on how that situation goes. With the loss of Reggie Bush, towards the end of that game, Joique Bell and Theo Riddick George Wynn is somebody to keep an eye on. I'm not saying grab him now, but keep an eye on him. And finally, Odell Beckham Jr. for the Giants. Finally had his debut and kind of had a splash in his first game. So keep an eye out again. Now Eli has another target, another toy, something else to look at. So yeah, that's the whole list and everything. And you know, as usual, follow me on Twitter if you got any questions for start ads or any trade questions. You know, I'll get you as soon as I get it or as soon as I get a chance. If you got questions you want to leave down here, comments or whatever, feel free. Subscribe to the page, you know, and follow me on Twitter. We got to get this subscription numbers up. Try to get some more followers so that we can spread the word. And again, I want to thank y'all. Like I said, we're getting close to that halfway point, you know, of the season. Well, halfway point of getting to week 6 of it, which is like the halfway point before the playoffs start. I want to thank all y'all for whoever has been subscribing and following and asking me questions. You guys have been great, man. Some of you guys, you know, I can already, you know, I get to know you guys through, you know, some of your questions and some of your enthusiasm. It's, you know, a good, well over a dozen that I get a feeling of what you guys are, your teams are like, and this, that, or the other. I develop rapport with you guys, and keep it coming. You know, I'm glad to help, and I hope, you know, y'all are learning something about fantasy, and more importantly than anything, I hope you're enjoying it. So yeah, so on to week 6, and good luck this coming week, and make sure you grab your ads, you know, and I don't know if y'all guys are doing it the right way, but put your waivers in before Wednesday morning so that you can get them. I know it's not been, some of my leagues is not as much activity, people doing it after the fact. So I'm not sure if they know the rules or not. If you're new, try to put them in your claims, you know, before time so that you can process and not lose out, especially if you've got a player you really want and you've got a good waiver position. So yeah, but that's it. And y'all have a good week. And any questions you got, hit me up. Y'all have a good one.